Good afternoon. It is exactly 1 o'clock and we are coming to live from the Smart Hub. Welcome to our HubLive. My name is Elise Hatton and I'm the Smart Hub Business Manager. And as always, we bring these HubLives to you, to our people in business, to adopt technology and modern best business practice so that you can have a more profitable, more viable and more enjoyable experience in business. And today I'm with the absolutely amazing and lovely Tanya Rutherford. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks Elise. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming along. So Tanya, you are one of our members. Tell us a little bit about your business.
So I actually have two businesses because, like many of us when we're entrepreneurs, we can't stop at one. So I have one which is my coaching and facilitation business, where I particularly focus on coaching mum entrepreneurs. And my other business, which is the one that I'm really working on quite strongly in the Smart Hub at the moment, is my Learn2Learn program. And that is all about helping students transition to higher education. So giving them the mindset, the study strategies, and the confidence to really succeed and not drop out, because we don't want that.
Oh, that's awesome. So that's really your main business, right?
Yep.
The one where you're focusing on helping people transition into university or TAFE even, how to be successful and how to ensure that they obtain that degree and not just start and not finish properly. Yep. Awesome. That is so awesome. And as you all know, I've been saying for a couple of weeks that we did a survey at the end of last year, and we asked our entire community to help us understand what the challenges are that you as a business, people in business or business owners or entrepreneurs are experiencing in business. And the question was something like, tell us about your greatest challenge in business or to take your business to the next level. And quite surprisingly, the answer came back as time management and goal setting and productivity. So we've devoted all of February to this theme of goal setting, time management and productivity. And as you would have seen, is we've pretty much touched on this theme in every HubLive. We had our Lunch and Learn on Tuesday with Matthew Doyle around that theme. So if you're interested, you can go and watch that HubLive, the Lunch and Learn recording, which will be on our Smart Hub Facebook page as well. And today we're going to talk to Tanya, who's actually published a book in this, in this whole goal setting arena. So Tanya, talk to us about the book and talk to us about how to set proper goals, not just in your own life, but also in your business.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't matter whether it's business, whether it's you're working for someone else, or whether it's when you're studying or in your personal life. Everything interrelates, which is why we take a lot of focus on whole of life planning and whole of life time management. And I know it's really easy to focus on the things that we think we're spending time on, and we forget about how much time we spend traveling, how much time we spend doing the little nitty-gritty things like the answering emails or the hanging out the washing at home or whatever it might be. All those little things add up, and we suddenly find we don't have the time that we think we do.
That's quite a big problem, hey?
It's huge.
Yeah, we actually don't have a proper picture of all of the tasks that we have to complete in a day. Yeah, and so we think that we have it all under control, but at the end of the day, we're left with things left on our to-do list and often feel overwhelmed and tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are mums out there, just the process of picking up your children and getting them in the car after school can take hours.
Depending on the age, it can take more or less time. The younger they are, the more time it takes.
Yes.
Mind you, my kids are growing up a bit and it still takes a bit of time. Yeah. What's the first question your kids ask you when they get in the car?
They don't usually ask me questions. They usually complain. You've come too early, even if it's just before closing time. Or, you should have come earlier, or I'm hungry and what have you got to eat? It's probably the most questions I get is, what do I have to eat?
Same question. What's for afternoon tea?
Yep.
Love being a mum. Okay, tell us about goal setting.
Okay, goal setting. So when I talk about whole of life goal setting, and it is actually quite similar to what you do in your business and with teams, but I'm just going to talk to you about it in terms of a personal perspective first, because I think we've got to get our own stuff sorted before we can work together on things. So the first one is, quite often we leap into identifying what a goal is. Many of you will be familiar with SMART goal framing, which is great, and that's a process that we follow when we get to the goal setting stage. But there's a lot of stuff we need to sort out first, and we generally don't think about that stuff. We think about, oh, we want to achieve this, this is what we want to frame it as, and off we go. And the problem with that is it doesn't take into account us or our lives or the other things going on. And so what we tend to find is we've got this goal that's almost sitting out in the middle of nowhere. It's not actually connected to anything. It's not connected to where we're wanting to go necessarily. It's not connected to all our motivations. And so it can quite easily just drop off.
So when we talk about time management and productivity and goal setting, what's the importance of goal setting really? Why is it important for us to start on this topic?
Because if you don't know where you're going, you won't know when you get there or if you're on the wrong track.
And you only get one life, and you want to ensure that where you're heading with this one life is and what you actually want to do, right?
Yeah.
I love the idea of whole of life goal setting. So you don't just start with, okay, in my business or in my fitness or in my finances, this is what I'm going to do. You look at all of the aspects of your life, and you take a holistic view so that you ensure that everything is traveling in the right direction.
Yep.
Okay, so talk us through how to do that.
Well, before I do, I just want to follow up on that one little bit. And sometimes we need to be really careful about framing. So I went through a bit of a process a few weeks ago. I was feeling very frustrated, and I sort of mapped out on a piece of paper where I was spending key portions of my time. So, there was family, there was work, there was this job, there was that, so it was a lot of different things. And it felt like I was being torn in a lot of different directions, and my energy was being drawn in a lot of different directions. And then what I started to do, after I kind of got over that process, is I started rethinking, well, what was my motivation in each of those areas? What was I trying to achieve in each of those areas? And I actually found I had this common thread. And it is all about, for me, it's all about helping people realise their potential and bring out their best. And I could see that in each little area that I was working on, slightly different variations, but it was still that common theme. And once I could identify that, it just made it feel much more manageable within myself, that I wasn't actually being torn in all these different directions. I was actually just expressing that, guiding value perhaps in different ways. And so that made it a lot easier within to manage those conflicting or feeling like conflicting times.
Awesome. Hey, Monica, thank you so much for joining us. We're on our HubLive today, obviously, with the lovely Tanya Rutherford, talking again about the theme for the month, which is around goal setting, productivity and time management. Really, the theme came from the survey we did at the end of last year, and we asked our community, what is the thing that you're challenged with most, or the thing that is the most challenging in your life and in your business? And an overwhelming response was around goal setting, time management and productivity. Hence why the whole of February was devoted to this topic, and we're doing our very, very final session on this today. Tanya has mentioned to us so far that the whole idea of actually goal setting is only a little bit of the process, but there are things that we need to do prior to framing it as a SMART goal, which is something Chris Lorang and I spoke about last week. Or the week before, I think, can't remember exactly what week was it last week. That was Chris? Okay, last week. And the week before was Katie, yes. So it's about the things that we need to do before we actually get to the bit where we set those goals. So step us through, what are those things?
Okay, so essentially I look at like a 10-step process because it's just nice and round numbers are easy. 10.
Yay!
And I've written them down so that I don't get them mixed up, because I usually do get them mixed up when I go off the top of my head. So the first one's really clarity, and clarity about where you are now. So what do you want and what don't you want? Because when we set goals, we're looking at a towards state, so we want to move to, but also an away state. So if we're wanting to move away from where we are now and into an ideal future, we want to know what both of those things are. And we want to keep the things that we like now too. So if we're enjoying some parts, well, let's make sure we keep them with us. The next one is really uncovering our resistance.
So just before we go to step 2, so with step 1, do you suggest that people sit down and write down the answer? Or so you ask yourself, literally write down, what do I want?
Yeah.
What don't I want? And make just lists, whatever comes to mind. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty much.
Very simple.
And they can be small and big. And sometimes, I mean, often if we're not in a really good space, then all of our framing tends to be around what we don't want. And we need to kind of have a bit of a balance. And so sometimes opposing that. So saying, for example, I don't want to work with people who are, you know, I don't connect with on a, you know, intellectual level, or whatever it might be. Then saying, well, what I do want instead is I want to be working with people that I enjoy being with and that I can have conversations and we get what we're talking about, you know. So just reframing it, thinking about what that nice ideal state is as well as what we're working away from.
Awesome. Hey, Peter, thank you so much for joining us. Monica, Peter, hop on in the comments and ask us a question, or please feel free to make any comments. We would love for you to interact with us, and we will do our very best to answer any questions you might have. Okay, so now after we've sat down and said, what do I want and made a list, and what don't I want and make a list, what do we do next? What's step 2?
Well, everything for me is pretty much about making lists, really.
Okay,
or
so it's all the
at
list
least
making
writing
process.
things down, thinking about things and writing it down. So the next one is really, in summary, it's about uncovering your resistance. So what is stopping me from wanting to achieve this? What are the things that are going to hold me back? And change at any point is very uncomfortable. Whether it's we're moving from something unpleasant or something pleasant, our whole bodies are trying to stop us from moving away from that because we know that space. It's familiar. Whether it's a good space or not, it's totally irrelevant. So understanding the things that are coming up for us when we're starting to look at, well, what we want to change. And a big part of that is actually reflecting on the emotions that we're feeling. So accepting that we do go through emotions when we're going through a change process, and reflecting on what message that emotion's trying to give us. So, for example, quite often sadness is about losing something, whether it's a loss of how we're feeling or a loss of where we've been. Anger is usually fear-related. So thinking about what are the things that we're actually afraid of, and they may not be rational. In fact, quite often they're not. It might be, you know, something that's happened way in the distant history of you, and there's something about this that's reminding you of that. So just being aware of the things that are coming up, because once you can identify those, then you can take steps to make sure that they're not going to jeopardise your goal this time.
I think this step is extremely important, because if you skip the resistance step, you might start working towards achieving your goal, but you'll always feel like something's holding you back, or you'll find yourself procrastinating or doing other things, not prioritizing your actual goals. And then the frustration sets in, and then you start really doubting whether you can actually achieve anything. So this is a critical and crucial step. So as Tanya said, just sit down and say, what could be holding me back? What am I feeling, and what does that mean?
Yeah, and just speak. I mean,
Just
sometimes the answer comes, for me, usually I come up with really great ideas when I'm in the shower, when I'm driving, anytime when your mind isn't necessarily engaged with focusing on something, it kind of goes into its, I think, delta brainwaves or something like that, and you come up with a lot more insights. And thinking about the resistance stuff and how powerful it can be, one that came up for me a couple of weeks ago with trying to work with, you know, selling processes and, you know, all those things that are just not comfortable for me anyway. I suddenly realised that one of the things I was resisting was the idea of success, because I was afraid that if I succeeded, and I'm talking success in a big way, so transitioning to quite a big, perhaps going to a big company, or, you know, growing quite quickly. And because I've got imagination, I go places very quickly in my head. I suddenly realised I was afraid that if I succeeded, I wouldn't have the time to be the mother that I wanted to be and that was important to me. And it was like, wow, that's like, it was just really interesting, because I'd not really thought of it that way before. And if I reflect on it in a rational sense, so emotions aren't rational, I'll probably have more time when my business becomes successful, because at the moment I'm trying to do so many different things. And I'm trying to get it off the ground, so there's all those other things and the emotion that goes with that. So they're not necessarily rational resistance things, but as soon as we become aware of them, we can start working through, okay, well, how can I make sure that that's not going to hold me back? And most of it's self-talk and headspace stuff, but unless we find it, we don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. Uncovering it is a great first step, and then of course you have to deal with it. So what's in step 3?
Step 3 is celebrate the wins.
So if you're just at the beginning of a goal setting process, what wins are we going to celebrate?
Celebrate everything that we've done so far, because everything we have done in the past has taken us to where we are now. And it's so easy to think that we have, the goal is going to be the success point. We have to wait until we've achieved the goal before we can celebrate. When in actual fact, sometimes, coming up with what your resistances are, that's a big win. Clarifying where you want to be, working out what did you do last year that actually transitioned you from where you might have been earlier. And the really small things are the really key things too. It doesn't have to be, a massive, big, hallelujah kind of moment. It's just like real little things that you go, yeah, actually, that was a trigger point, because a small hole can sink a big ship. So if we celebrate the small wins, and we're plugging our small holes, we're going to be in a much better space to transition to wherever we want to go in future.
Awesome. I love that. So step 1 was, let's do a quick recap. Clarity. Step 2, resistance. Step 3, celebrate the wins. What's step 4?
Step 4 is reflecting. So, obviously you can see there's a lot of reflecting anyway in my process, but actually just stopping and just being really clear, okay, well, almost like a summary, I guess, version of, okay, well, what is it that, where am I at? What am I trying to do? How am I getting there? And how am I going so far? So that's really
again,
short.
you just journal the answers to those questions?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
and sometimes it's really good also to think about the fact that often when we're reflecting, it's almost like looking at ourselves in a mirror. So it's not the same picture that other people see. So if you've ever, I use Zoom a lot. And there's an option in Zoom where you can have a mirror effect. And the good thing with the mirror effect is it looks like when you're looking at yourself in the mirror. So you're used to that view. Whereas if you look at the other way around, it actually looks quite different, because you're not used to seeing your face the same way that everyone else sees it. So just being aware, other people see things different, and sometimes asking other people as well, what they see, the qualities that they see in you, how they, the things that they think you could be achieving.
That kind of feedback is so critical. But also be wise in who you ask, so that you get wise feedback and not just someone's random rambling or bad opinion on a bad day. You want to be very selective and wise when you ask for feedback on what other people might think that you could achieve. Okay, what's the next step? So we're up to step
5. Values. One of my favourites. And one of those ones that's actually quite often not done well, which is a bit disappointing because there's so many workshops on values. And I've done lots too, so, I've been a culprit in the past. Quite often when we do a values exercise, we think about our surface values. So we think about, okay, well, I love, spending time with people, I love my family, different things that are important to us. And it's not until we actually get to a pressure point where sometimes our true deep-seated values actually come through.
So how do you go from the surface level values to a deep-seated pressure point value?
It's a really good question. Maybe you need to buy my book, can I tell you?
Clearly.
Well, and it does sort of depend on the person a bit as well, but it's just really about exploring the things that are important in your life and why. And values can be, they can be things that we've developed over time as a result of our experiences. They can be ones that we've inherited through family, cultural and community values, things like that. One of the surprising ones that I discovered, this was a couple of years ago, and I was working at the time in a team with a group of people who were not very nice to me, and I had experienced quite a bit of stress as a result. And I'd actually moved into a different office at this point in time, and one of the new team members, and I don't know why he said it, but it was one of those lines that said, I was talking to the girls about why they don't like you, and they said it's because when one of the girls was unwell and had to go to hospital, you just told them to be quiet. And I was gutted. Like, it didn't matter that that those people didn't have opinions that I really respected because they had been so awful to me. It didn't matter that it wasn't true. None of that mattered. It absolutely cut me. And I couldn't sleep that night. It was, it was really, really deep. And it wasn't until I started reflecting on why this was affecting me so much that I realised that being helpful and being a supportive and caring person was a really deep-seated value. And that was in direct conflict with how I saw myself. And that's why it really hit me so hard. So sometimes they can kind of come up in surprising ways, depending on how deep they are. But yeah, so and I guess with these, it's also being a bit, with any of these processes, being gentle with yourself as well, because there are things that come up for us when we do reflect, which, they can be pretty tough.
They really can. And as you said, sometimes those really deep-seated values only come to light when things don't feel good.
Yeah.
And that's the indication that somewhere there's a conflict.
Definitely.
Between your reality and what you value.
Yeah. Anytime where there's a situation that's not feeling right, that's a really good spot to start and really start questioning, why is this so uncomfortable for me? So
even though it's step 5, it really is something that we do continuously, that we should be doing all the time. Okay, tell us about step 6.
My steps aren't really necessarily linear, I have to point that out.
Okay, fair enough. Let's go to step 6.
Step 6, being change ready. So we've done a bit of that when we're talking about resistance, but there's also a bit of mindset. Okay, well, I'm ready to make the change, so what am I going to need to do that? And often that might be things like actually coming back to time, thinking about what do I need to let go so I can actually start taking the actions that I'm going to take, that I want to take. What are the things that I need to let go that are holding me back so that I can actually move into that new state?
That's so important. How can I make space for this in my life? Yes.
Yep.
And am I ready to do that? How can I prepare? When you're having a baby, you need to go and prepare for the baby, right? So setting a goal is almost the same thing, because you'll realize that thing in your life. So you have to go and prepare a space for it. Awesome. Okay, what's the next step?
Next one is support. And it's really key, particularly if we're doing significant goals and significant change, that we have supporters in our lives.
So important, yeah.
And you'll have different ones for different elements. So when I talk about this in terms of study, the way that I look at it is, we'll have people in our lives who are supporters of us because they know who we are and they believe in us, and they can say, look, Elise, you've done this before, you've got through this, you can do it again, that sort of thing. And then you've got the people who understand you from a study context. So they can say things like, well, remember when you did that last assessment and you did really well, or, you remember that skill that we were learning. You can sort of have people from different elements coming together and supporting you in different ways. We don't need someone who is a one-stop shop for everything, because that rarely ever works. And it puts so much pressure on that person or those people to be more than what they can be. So sometimes that support's a bit reciprocal. We have to support them to support us too.
Okay, that's awesome. I think that's such an important element. What's the next step?
Next one, vision. So we've done all the groundwork, if you like, and now you start thinking about, well, what is it that I actually want to achieve? Where do I want to be? So not actually defining it as a goal as yet, but actually looking at the bigger picture stuff. And I know like vision boards and things like that are very popular, so I brought one in. This first year I've ever done one.
Ooh, nice. Show and tell, we love that.
And I have to tell you, I'm not good at things like cutting out magazines and pictures, because it doesn't really grab me. I'm very much about articulating it in words. So you can see with mine, there's a lot of words and a missing letter, but don't worry about that one. It is about the sort of things that are important to me that I kind of need to remember. And a big one for me is choosing my own adventure. In the past, I've felt that I've kind of been trying to live up to a lot of what other people want. So for example, when I did my first degree, because I'm a serial student, don't worry about that, I did accounting. I wanted to be a teacher, my parents were teachers and they didn't feel that that was probably a good place to be at the time. It was quite a while ago, last century sometime. So instead I ended up becoming accountant, which is actually what my dad would have liked to have done. So I started noticing that I was falling in these patterns of living other people's lives. And so that's why that one in particular was so important. And so there's all sorts of things that can kind of come in, and they don't necessarily have to seem like they're just one big thing, but lots of different aspects of our lives, because we are complicated, multifaceted creatures. So it's important to make sure that we sort of keep that in mind when we do these things.
Correct. Hello, Derek. Thank you so much for joining us. And hello, Daniel. Thank you for joining us. I'm with Tanya Rutherford. We're talking the last little bit of the theme around this month, goal setting, productivity and time management. We're talking about goal setting. Tanya has shared a number of steps with us on how to set proper goals. And we're just getting to the point where we're actually going to talk about goal setting. So far we've covered things like ensuring that you have clarity, ensuring that you get rid of the things that will cause you to resist achieving the goal. I'm skipping ahead, ensuring that you have a good support system. And now the last step was...
No, we got the previous one, visioning.
Visioning,
making
so
sure
we're
we know
starting
what
to,
we want
and
to get.
making a vision board is what Tanya was showing us before. And now what's the next step? We're up to step 8, is that right?
9. Step 9.
Step 9.
Yes. Being ready for action.
Oh,
so,
action ready.
Lovely. We've done all the groundwork, but taking that step can be still scary. So it can be quite brave. Need you to be brave to take that first step.
Take the first step. So would the vision step really be where you're setting your goals, or where do you set the actual goal?
Well, I set it next.
Nice.
Because I say you need to be ready to take the action before you go about setting the goals. And the reason I do that is I've worked in a lot of corporates and I've seen people come up with grand ideas and, they set goals and that's really great. They're really good at planning, but nothing changes.
Yeah, nothing happens.
Nothing changes. And so being ready to actually take the action, and then once you've got whatever you need to in place, because sometimes that's resources, sometimes that's, as we said before, time and everything else, getting ready, then you're ready to sit down and say, okay, well, what can we achieve that's going to start moving us towards those visions? So we're not going to necessarily jump straight to the vision, depending on how big that is. There might be several goals that we need to develop to step us along the way. And it helps us to be realistic so that it's not, something that is awe-inspiring and quite big, but out of reach. Small bites can get us through an elephant.
Awesome. Hey, Janelle, thank you so much for joining us. We're with Tanya, which I'm sure you know Tanya really well. Okay, so what you're saying is you take the vision, which is the overall direction and big, hairy, audacious goal that you want to achieve, which we set a couple of steps back. And then we set ourselves poised for action. And then we break down that vision into specific, measurable and achievable goals. And then we are ready to actually make those things happen. Because there's no point setting that goal and then just continuing on with your life as if, you never set the goal.
Nothing's changed.
And then it's just setting yourself up to fail, which is what we try to prevent. Perfect.
And when I look at goal setting, I try and, I generally do it on a bit of an annual process because it's nice. Nice to do. You've got some things that you want to focus on for the year. But working on quarterly goals. So, 3 months is a really good chunk of time to dedicate to something, particularly when we've got so many other things going on in our lives. One of the ones I like using is, this is a book I use a lot with my coaching clients as well, and it really, for each quarter, you actually set what your focus is for the quarter. And that's, might be 5 things that you want to achieve that are going to get you towards that big goal. And then you actually break it down into little action steps, and you can put it in a planner or, Asana or Trello or whatever else you might like to use to actually keep track of the action steps that you're taking and making sure that they are still aligned.
Love it. Which really kind of then segues into the time management, because then that's where the scheduling comes in, right? Scheduling is so important. Do you use a specific app or tool for scheduling? Crap. I've tried. That's not how I work very well.
How do you work? For me, it's this. So it's like a diary. I write down what I'm doing, the key things that I'm working on each day for the week. And then I look at the end of each day, how have I gone? And at the end of each week, am I moving towards my goal? How am I traveling? Am I keeping up? The other one is healthy habits. So making sure my brain is like hydrated and eating healthy foods. And
so what are your healthy habits?
The healthy habits that I'm not doing well this week is sleep. I'm getting much better on my water, and eating well and just spending time enjoying life. So laughing, experiencing joy, and creativity. They're my focus ones at the moment. Joy and creativity.
Oh, that's cool. What do you do for joy and creativity?
Probably spends a lot of time with my children.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Because they want to paint.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but they want to paint inside, and trying to manage things in wet weather, it's more complicated than anything else. But it is good, and really it has really changed the way I start my mornings, because I try and start with, if I was Joy, how would I be walking out the door? How would I be driving in the car with my children while they're having a fight in the back seat? And trying to just bring it back into yourself. That's kind of like just a mindset thing, because it can help you. And I'm not joyful every day. I have to be realistic. But some days I go, wow, that was really crap. Let's start again tomorrow. But it does really help. It helps to sort of be able to kind of reframe things a bit more when you've got something like that you're focusing on.
Nice. I love that. Okay, so bringing a good energy.
Yes, good energy.
Good energy to whatever you do. I know that some of the big habits for high performers are clarity, so knowing exactly what it is that you want to achieve. How you want to show up in the world, but we also have specific goals. And then secondly, having the right energy so that your body is healthy and your mind is clear, so that you can focus, you can bring the best of yourself to the tasks that you have to do. But also bringing a good vibe, so to speak, a good mood, positive emotional experience to the things that we do, so that we can go into a state which is kind of called flow, which time disappears and you're fully engrossed in what you do. And because you've done the process that we've just outlined, you actually know that what you are working on is the thing that will take you closer to what it is that you want to achieve, which is all about productivity. So I think productivity is twofold. It leads to, is what you're working on going to take you closer to your goal? But also, are you fully focusing on the tasks that matter most in the time that you've set aside for those tasks to be done? Talk to us about how you focus. How do you make yourself, or how do you enable yourself to become so engrossed in what you do, so that you are able to focus on that one thing and move the needle?
I think the easy wins on that is just phones on silent or vibrate in case the kids have emergency. The no interrupt option on most computers now, I think there's actually a thing where it will stop pop-ups, which is great because they're so annoying. But I think just really blocking out the time. So with my online calendar, I actually block out chunks of time to do specific projects, because I know otherwise I'll get distracted and it won't get done. And it just kind of really helps keep focus, particularly when you've got the key things that you want to achieve each day and you know that they're going to be in alignment with your bigger goal. Now, it's not going to work every day. Like, there's always going to be like a fire that's, you've got to put out.
Hopefully not always.
Not literally a fire necessarily.
But things come up,
Yeah, things come up. You've got to deal with it. But, generally you can sort of find a time in the day, and most of us have a time when we naturally more likely to be in flow. And you can sort of structure your annoying stuff the other time, and then just really give yourself dedicated time. I put on, because I often work in co-working spaces, so having headset on and just some, classical music that hasn't got any words that are going to distract me, and just kind of move, work through what it is. Close everything else on my screen, so I've only got that there. And I find that really helps a lot.
I do. I like the music idea. I like meditation music for concentration and focus. It really does do something to help you just get engrossed in what you do, and it focuses the mind really, really well. Now, thank you so much for sharing those steps. So now we know how to set goals and what to do prior. And I really like the one where you look at what will prevent you within yourself, your own resistance to achieving stuff. And then setting the vision, breaking that down, being action ready, breaking that down, and then scheduling it so that we have a tool for managing our time, and then ensuring that we bring full focus and best energy of ourselves to our tasks. Talk to us about how you have used the system in your own business in Learn2Learn.
Oh, God. Well, I actually have to, with any of these things, it's a long work in progress. And practicing these over time actually helps you to embed those practices. And if I give you an example of last week, it was the perfect week for me. Not all week, but overall, it felt like it was in flow. Everything just felt like it was lining up for me. And, I guess the thing that you need to remember when you do have those moments is to actually do appreciate them too. Because then they'll come more, because you're recognizing, you're stopping, you're thinking, you're making the most of those times. And so I've found, with this process, I've gone from, just having, initially first time when I started talking to you about Smart Hub, I was thinking only about my coaching business. And then I spoke to you about my idea, and this was a couple of years ago. And it was like, suddenly doors started opening, and things happen over a period of time.
Let's just tell people what the idea was. So your idea was, you saw, because you work at Central Queensland University, and you saw that a big challenge is attrition of especially mature age students.
Yes.
And you understood that if you could help those people learn more effectively, that they would start degrees and also finish those same degrees, as opposed to start degrees and then leave halfway, fall out, right? So the whole idea that you've been working on over the last couple of years while you've been a Smart Hub member is a concept and a business called Learn2Learn, which is teaching mature age students, or other students as well, that's expanded a little bit now, how to study effectively so that they can achieve the goals in university that they set out to achieve.
Yeah.
I love your idea, because I think from an Australian context, how good would it be if the money that we spend on education actually, was a great return on investment?
Yeah, I mean, we have it's an average of 20% of students just fall out completely.
20%, that's amazing. 2 out of 10 people don't start but don't finish.
Yeah.
And then we went to that's what's happening in Australia. Globally, this is a massive problem. And that's really the idea that you've been working on over the last. Okay, so sorry for interrupting your story. Okay, so how are you implementing?
So I think the big thing for me was identifying opportunities as they came and grabbing hold of them with both hands, and really doing whatever I needed to do to get the obstacles out of the way to make it happen. And sometimes that was negotiating with my husband to do kid pick up and drop off so I would have time. Sometimes that's doing calls at weird hours, and managing things around that. When we had the opportunity to join the Turbo Traction Lab with the Smart Hub, I was like, oh my God, I need that. And I think I was harassing Courtney on a regular basis of, have you heard? Am I in? When do I know? What do I need to do? Is there anything else I'm missing? Because I so wanted that opportunity. And the one thing I found in life is, when you want something really badly and you do whatever you can to get there, you will get there. Whether that's a job, whether that's, well, maybe not stalking people, but boyfriends and things, but everything, but all the things that we want to achieve in life, the important stuff, we can get there if we want it enough. And I guess for me, a lot of the work that I do is actually helping people to translate that desire, whether it's to learn, whether it's in their business, and actually help them to find the opportunities, find the things that they need that they can piece together so that they will succeed. And it's interesting when we talk about the study skills and the mindset that I teach the students, because it's not just their studies that are affected. It's like when we're talking whole of life goals, this is whole of life impacts that these things have, you know. It's absolute life changes that they tell us, which is such a privilege to be able to hear that and to share that. So
that is absolutely awesome.
Distracted there.
I'm not sure who is watching from the Queensland Chief Entrepreneurs Office, maybe Leanne or Craig, but welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Jeline, also for joining us on our HubLive. I'm here with Tanya Rutherford. We are finishing our theme for the month, which is around time management, productivity, and goal setting, which is what we heard from our members in our community at the end of last year when we surveyed everyone. That's the number one challenge that they're struggling with. And Tanya shared with us, if you want to go back and watch this live once it's on our fan page, on our Facebook page, Tanya's shared with us 10 really insightful steps of setting whole of life goals, and then how you can go about taking those whole of life goals, ensuring that what you're doing is what you actually want to be doing, and then moving that into a time management system, and then moving that into a productivity system. And tell us, so we've already dealt with all of that. Yeah, so go back and watch. Tanya, just before we wrap up, yeah, you've mentioned the Turbo Traction Lab. You mentioned that you've been a Smart Hub member for a couple of years. In fact, you were in the building next door, which is now been demolished, no longer the building.
We did have great views.
We did. We had a great time too. It was wonderful. It was in the early days of the Smart Hub, which is not so long ago.
We still have great times now. I have to clarify that.
We do. We absolutely do. Tell us about what it's like to be a Smart Hub member, and also then tell us a little bit about the Turbo Traction Lab and your experience in that.
I guess for me, the Smart Hub is a really great place to meet people who are genuine about helping other people. Like, you think we're all these different people out there, we've all got different businesses, and everyone is more than happy to stop what they're doing and to give you a hand with something. Like, it is such an amazing environment.
It's a really giving community.
It is beautiful. And, you know, you get the same faces, and, you know, you get to know people and you chat, and it's like, I liken it to being in a really great working team where you don't actually have to manage anyone else's stuff. You can just do your own thing and then just have all the fun times together, and celebrate together too. Like, we have really great time celebrating each other's successes as well, which is really nice. And it does sort of fill in a bit of that support mechanism as well, because the people here get the challenges that you get when you're developing businesses and working out on your own.
Yeah, it's really great. I think one of the culture elements for us is that give first, and we have a community that absolutely lives by that every single day. And it is so good where people support each other, and we go through similar challenges, and we experience, share, and we're able to go, yeah, but I did this and this is what happened. So there's almost like this mentorship that goes on in the community that's unspoken, that just happens all the time, and people share opportunities with each other, introduce them to their connections. It's a wonderful thing. And then you mentioned the fun element. Our Smart Hub fun elements has gone to a whole new level. Did you see the ping pong table
upstairs?
I know. We just introduced a nice little chill out zone with a ping pong table. And
it's great. I think it's a great use of space.
It is.
It is a great place. And I think the thing is, it's so flexible. So we've got some people who are full time, and this is where they work out of. And then there's others like me who just like pop in and out, and the days that suit us. And it's not like you're excluded or you're different because you're doing things a different way. It's just like, hey, I haven't seen you for a while. What's going on? How's the business? You know, everyone's always genuine, and they're always genuinely interested.
It's really great. It's really great. And our community is growing. I think we've just gone to the 90 members. Woo-hoo. I know, so good. Awesome. We're just at the 90 mark. I know, so good. Turbo Traction Lab, how have you found that
Life-changing. Best ever. It's been amazing. Like I said, I was so keen to be involved, and it's just been beyond whatever I could have imagined.
That's awesome.
The mentors that we have, they're just fantastic. And again, they're just so generous with their time, with their knowledge, and the support that you feel I mean, you know, I had the other day, I had a sale for $39. It's like, everyone's like, "Wow, that's amazing!" I'm like, "Yeah, thanks, $39." But it's so fun, and it's, you know, it's just such a supportive environment, and the access that you get. There is no way that in a normal working environment you would get access to the caliber of knowledge and experience that you get through this program. It's just been fantastic. And I can't remember all the financial sponsors. I remember Bevan Slattery,
the federal government and Rockhampton Regional Council are the sponsors of the program. Yeah, which essentially means that for people like you, 35, we've had 35, we are now in our last lab 3, for this funding round, and we've had 35 businesses. You're one of those 35 businesses, and really it's free of charge for people who've been successful to participate.
Which is amazing, really, because there's no, like, I could not afford that kind of support. So, and the thing is that you can have really great concepts. Obviously mine's great.
It is great. It really is great.
Yeah, it is really great. But, you know, there's other great concepts out there that don't get the light of day because we don't get access to these opportunities. And it can be very challenging, particularly when you're trying to fund it yourself. And I'm not good at pitching, I can tell you now.
You're getting so much better.
I'm good at pitching other people's things. So I've just got to keep remembering to reframe things, because it's all about how you benefit other people.
That's right.
And once you can get your head in the right space, anything's possible, and this place makes anything possible.
I think you are a very, very, very valued member of our community. Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge. Wes and Gideon, thank you for joining us. We're just about to wrap up. Tanya is going to share her final word of wisdom. What can you share with us as just before we say goodbye?
Believe in yourself, you are enough.
That's pretty profound. I really like that. And when you believe in yourself and you know that you're enough, then go and do something with your life that's worthwhile. And the process that Tanya chatted us through in this HubLive will really help you get there. So if you missed any of our very valuable content, please feel free to go back and watch it again. We will see you next Thursday at 1 o'clock. Next Thursday, we're transitioning onto our next theme, which is all around team. So next week, we'll have an HR theme and also a workplace and health and safety theme. So everything you need to know about how to manage your workplace for your team and also your team from an HR perspective. So we look forward to seeing you next week at 1 o'clock. Thank you for joining us. See you later.